Nottingham Forest are one of 3 Premier League teams who are yet to sign a first-team player this summer, and considering Forest only survived relegation last season by a mere 4 points, the opening day fixture away to Arsenal is looming and the squad is in desperate need of some reinforcements. And after signing 30 players over the course of last year's summer and January transfer window, the squad is in need of definitely some more quality rather than quantity. And of course, when you're assessing the squad, you can see there's a lot of players available to Steve Cooper. However, how many of them are actually good enough to be in the Nottingham Forest that come next season? You got Shelvey, who's a young 22-year-old goalkeeper. You got Horvath after a season-long loan at Luton, who helped them get promoted, but Luton don't want to sign. And you got Wayne Hennessy, who was kind of underwhelming last season for Nottingham Forest. I think you can definitely keep Shelvey because he's young. One of Horvath and Hennessy as a goalkeeper backup. I think Horvath, because he had a great season on loan, Hennessy can get rid of. Drager at right back, I'm not sure he's good enough. You got Aurier, you got Neco Williams. Steve Cook, he was left out of the side from January onwards. I don't think he's got a future at the club anymore. You then look at Panzo, I think he needs a loan signing. You look at Bolly, I think with 1 year left in his contract, he's not going to be working out. You got McKenna, who at the time was a good signing, coming from Scotland and Aberdeen, but it hasn't quite worked out for him. So I think it's just at his age now, I think it's time he gets to move on and get to move elsewhere. Biancon, I think, is one where I'm not quite sure. I think he needs a loan to kind of prove he deserves to be in the squad. You got Toffolo, who unfortunately has got those 375 FA charges for betting, so his availability next season is going to be in doubt. You got Kouyaté, who can do a job, but is too injury prone. His age profile, and with 1 year left on his contract, you may as well try and get as much money from him as possible. O'Brien, who Steve Cooper seemingly, according to reports, has fallen out with, so he's not in the squad anymore. Arter, who has a great career across many different clubs, proper journeyman, but Forest gave him a 1 year contract, and even though Steve Cooper didn't play much last season, so I don't see how he's going to fit into the side. You got John Shelvey, who after a move from Newcastle in January, seemingly again had a falling out with Steve Cooper, so he's not going to be around. I think Bowler, he had a bit of an injury last season, and he's coming back now, and I think he needs to go on another loan. You got Aguilera, who I think the young Costa Rican is going to show a lot of promise. However, I think it's one where he needs to be playing in either the under-21s or going out on loan to try to get acclimatised to English football. So I don't think he's going to be available for Steve Cooper. Then you got the forwards. Sam Surridge is left to the MLS, so he's not going to be available for £5 million. So I think that's a cracking bit of business for them. I think you got Wood, who again, similar to Shelby, joined from Newcastle in the January transfer window. After 3 appearances on the bench, Nottingham Forest were forced to trigger closing his contract and sign permanently. I think it's one where you try and get rid of him because Steve Cooper didn't like him. And then you've got Dennis, who I think could do a job, especially playing on up front and on the left. However, if Cooper's not going to use him like he did last season, then what's the point of having him? You got Hwang, who at the time of recording has literally just scored against Notts County in the preseason friendly. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he can play. Maybe he can play on the left. He's an option. Got Taylor, who's a young up-and-coming striker. I think the season's gonna be too soon for him. I think he needs to play in the youth team or get out on loan. And then all of a sudden, you look at the squad and you think to yourself, you're a bit short in a few key areas of the pitch. Okay, so depending on the formation that Steve Cooper wants to play, obviously he started last season with 3 at the back. It ended up starting off tragically, so he reverted to a 4 at the back, and it ended up kind of working with a 4-3-1-2 with Johnson and Iwani at top, with Morgan Gibbs just behind them, and a 3 midfield. Obviously, there's some key areas. You've lost your goalkeeping options. You've got only Shelvey and Horvath. And I think you definitely need a goalkeeper because you lost Ian Henderson on loan. You've lost Keylor Navas, who returned back to PSG. You got Williams and Aurier right back, which I think is fine. Worrell, Felipe, and Nkate. I think you need another centre back as well because you've really got 3 options from the ones who are left. Omar Richards, a left back or left wing back. I think you can need a left back as well, considering the fact that you're losing Toffolo. Obviously, Neco Williams can play there. However, I'm not sure it's one where you really want to be playing in, week out a left back. And especially Omar Richards coming back from an injury for most of last season. His fitness is going to be brought into question. He needs to get match fitness back. In the field, you've got Morgan Gibbs-White, who's obviously amazing around towards the back end of the season, really helping Forest keep him up, and especially considering his form in the Euros for under 21 European Championships for England as well. Scarpa, who I think can do a job. Mangala, Freuler. You really need another midfielder as well. You've got Maiten there as well, Johnson, and you're really lacking width areas as well. So there's a lot of areas for Nottingham Forest which need improvement. We're going to first of all start off with the goalkeeper, as you really want to set a goalkeeper before you go into the start of the season. And I am going to suggest a return to Trendside for Dean Henderson. The goalkeeper was obviously on loan from Man United last year, played 18 times, keeping 6 clean sheets, an average of 3.1 saves per 90 minutes, and of course having 2 crucial penalty saves out of 5 in the first half of the season. And of course he did get injured. He had a horrible thigh injury which required surgery, which kept him out for the remainder of the season, which obviously resulted in Nottingham Forest signing Keylor Navas on loan from PSG, which I think was a good bit of business for them, signing an experienced keeper, keeping them in the league. But I think now they need to go back to Dean Henderson. Remember, he's still only 26 years old. He's been around for a while. I know it feels like it, but 26, he can definitely be Nottingham Forest goalkeeper in the Premier League for years to come, and he definitely has the potential to be England's number one eventually. There was a point where we were talking about him usurping Jordan Pickford before Aaron Ramsdale's resurgence. So you never know. I think it's one where the dominoes have got to start falling first. Man United only have one first-team goalkeeper on the books in Tom Heaton after they've let David De Gea leave on a free transfer. As soon as they sign Andre Onana and then maybe a backup goalkeeper, they'll be more willing to allow Dean Henderson to leave to Forest. So I know they'll be playing hardball at the moment, but just let the dominoes fall. I think you're going to get Dean Henderson. I think it's a really good transfer for the club. He knows the club. He did really well last year, and to me, it seems just like a no-brainer. At centre-back, I think Nottingham Forest should sign Sebastian Bourneau, the 23-year-old Belgian international centre-back who's right-footed and stands at 6'3", plays for Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, who finished 8th last year. And this is one where I think he's actually quite underrated because of his teammates. He's got Mickey van der Ven, who plays a left-back for Wolfsburg normally, and he's one who's attracting a lot of interest this summer. He's also got Lacroix, who had a terrific start to the season, kind of dipped off towards the back end. But both of them were getting real great shout-outs and getting linked with moves away from the club, Mickey van der Ven in particular. But I think it's one where Bourneau has actually gone under the radar, and it's one where he had 3 seasons in the first team at Anderlecht, and then he had 2 more when he made the move to Germany in Cologne, and then from Cologne he's moved on to Wolfsburg, where he's spent his last 2 years. And I think it's one where next season there's going to be a lot of top teams looking at him and saying they could potentially have him for the next first choice centre back. And I think it's one we're Nottingham Forest, if they go in for him now, he might be ever so slightly undercooked. He's very good at getting his area duels and interceptions. His blocks, clearances are not as high, but there's still a decent amount. And I think it's one where, at 23 years old, Steve Cooper can work with him. Obviously, when you got the likes of Worrell, you got Felipe, Niankate, I think he can learn from all of them, from different things from all of them as well. Felipe's played at Champions League level, played for Atletico Madrid, and I think he can learn, and he can really start to really like Trendside. So it's one where it's a season too soon to sign him, but I think Forest should sign him because I think he could be a fantastic player for them in the future. And at left back, I'm going to suggest Matt Targett of Newcastle. I know it's not a very sexy option, but if you think about it, neither was Sergio when he signed for you at right back, and now look at him, what an unbelievable season he's had. Matt Targett obviously only had 610 minutes last year, but if you think about it in context, he had an unbelievable Dan Burn and Newcastle defence in front of him, who had an incredible season getting Champions League football. So of course Eddie Howard's going to rotate that side too much, otherwise you could have seen him get more minutes. But I think it's one where the stars perfectly align. Matt Targett wants minutes. Nottingham Forest need a left back who's both defensively sound and good going forward as well. And I think Targett did, because he's Premier League proven, he's a good age, he's 27 years old. Last year, despite only his 610 minutes, he had 1.33 interceptions per 90, 2.36 clearances and 1.62 aerial duels won. And that's defensively great. But if you also think about him going forward, 6.34 progressive passes per 90. And it's one where Nottingham Forest obviously want to do better than conceding the 68 goals they conceded last year. But you also want to score more goals than only the 38 you did last year, 1 goal per game on average. So it's one where I think he can influence the team both attackingly and defensively in a positive light. Especially Omar Richards, like I said, come back from an injury. Who knows what the play is going to be like. Toffolo, because of his FA charging him with the betting ban, we'll see what happens there. Neco Williams can obviously play left back as well, and he's done pretty well. But I think it's one where you need a match fit left back week in, week out. And if you take into account last season, before Dan Burn signed, he played 33 times for both Newcastle and Aston Villa that year, and obviously he did really well. He was a starting left back, and circumstances happen, and I think it's one where both player and club can benefit from signing him. And for the third player, I'm going to go for a midfielder, because I think Nottingham Forest desperately needs some more bodies in that midfield. Obviously, there are shouts for a centre defensive midfielder, and obviously I understand that. But I think Danilo can play there after a full season, give him a chance. I think Ryan Yates can also do a job there, even though I think he's better box to box, just kicking people, which he's really good at, to be fair to him. And, you could keep Kouyaté if you need to for another year. I mean, contract expires in 2024. It's not going to do the world of harm. So I actually think you need a midfielder who's going to replace Morgan Gibbs-White in that team if he ever gets injured or if he needs resting, because he was so crucial for you last season. You need to protect him, make sure he plays the majority of games for Forest next season in order to stay in the league. But then, if you think about it, if you're spending a lot of money on a Gibbs-White alternative, you also need someone who can play alongside him if required. So you need a well-rounded midfielder. And for me, that guy is Angel Gomez. I mean, the 22-year-old English centre midfielder, plays for Lille. He played 36 times last year in Liga. He's 34 starts, 2 goals and 6 assists in Liga, which I think is massively impressive for the former Man United player. And it was actually the European Championships under 21s, which he really caught my eye, and I think a lot of people's eye as well. Because 5 games England had, he started all 5 of them, 3.68 passes per 90 and 1.76 shots per 90 as well. And really impressive because he's playing in the double pivot in essentially what was a 4-4-2, but the team was incredibly fluid. And he's playing alongside Curtis Jones, and they share the defensive responsibility. So, although despite the fact that centre defensive midfield is not his preferred position, I definitely think he can play there at a stretch if you're really desperate. But also he could play in centre midfield along where Yates or Freuler were playing, and as a backup to Morgan Gibbs-White, if he ever gets injured, maybe you can move Gibbs-White a bit further ahead like we saw in the Euros. So I think he kind of makes perfect sense. He's the right age profile, he's English, he knows how the league works, and he massively improves that midfield, I think there was a lot to be desired from that midfield. It's very workmanlike, and Angel Gomez is workmanlike as well, but adding a little bit of quality in terms of the goals and assists and replacement for Gibbs-White, I think he's the perfect midfielder. And last but not least, I think Nottingham Forest need a striker as well, because obviously Tyrone did a fantastic job in his debut Premier League season. However, he was injured for 3 months, and that ultimately would result in Forest signing Chris Wood from Newcastle, which ended up as a massive flop, but let's not get into that. So they need someone to play instead of Iwani alongside him, and someone who can also complement the games of Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson as well. So I'm going to go for Beto from Udinese in Serie A. The forward played 33 times for Udinese last year, scoring 10 goals and getting 1 assist. And so the 25-year-old who stands at 6'2", I think is a perfect accompaniment to Tyrone, but also in replacements playing alongside Brennan Johnson. And especially if you look at his defensive numbers, these are incredible. And to be fair, a defensive midfielder or a centre-back would be proud of these. So according to FBref, he's in the top 56% for tackles, 71% for blocks, top 74% for interceptions, top 75% for aerial duels won, and top 89% for clearances. And if you also look at his attacking stats, the one in particular, take-ons, he's in the top 82% of all players in Europe for take-ons. And that just shows that defensively, he is a workhorse. You can play the ball up to him, he's going to win 82% of his duels on average, and I think that's a fantastic stat to have. But not only that, he's going to work hard for you in both ends of the boxes. He's also going to, when he gets the ball, he's going to take players on. 82% of his take-ons were successful. 82, that is incredible, and a great amount for Nottingham Forest, because oftentimes you're going to be defending deep, you're going to be looking for a target man to hit the ball to, which is what Awani was. But then someone at 25 years old, he's already quite experienced, coming to the Premier League, and he's going to get even better under Steve Cooper and this Nottingham Forest style. So, to me, it makes a no-brainer. The only thing is, obviously, he might cost a pretty penny. He might cost upwards of 25 to maybe 30 million pounds. Wouldn't Udinese let him go because he's such a crucial asset for them? I think they would if the price is right, and obviously the player would want to move to England if Nottingham Forest can offer him high wages. So I think that's a good deal for both parties. And I think if you pull it off, I think it's one where more clubs should be looking for a striker like Better, because there just seems to be an abundance of a lack of strikers at the moment because of the fact that all the top strikers are being priced out of the market at such high valuations and no one's willing to pay for them. That, just getting a guy who could get you 10 goals in the league could really help out massively and just take off the pressure, turn this few losses into draws and few draws into wins. And that'd be a massive boost for Forest. And there we have it. Those are my thoughts on Nottingham Forest, the players who I think Nottingham Forest should be getting rid of, as well as the 5 players who I think they should be bringing into the club this summer. Let me know what your thought. I know a few of you are going to disagree with me, and I can understand that. Some of you might say we need a centre defensive midfielder. I agree. However, I don't think Forest can spend all their money trying to get fix all the problems this summer, especially after buying 30 players last year. Obviously, some of them were duds, some of them were great successes. But I think it's one where defensive midfield you can get away with. I think the other areas, goalkeeper, centre back, left back, more attacking midfielder and a striker. It's definitely one of the areas which I think the Nottingham Forest should be addressing first this summer, and then if possible, then defensive midfield or other areas as well. But yeah, let me know. I think this one where Forest should be looking to stay away from relegation, go towards mid-table, and hopefully be a bit more than 4 points away from the from the drop this year.